Hello guys, welcome back. So we are back with the Forza Horizon 5 testing with the R9 290. We are following up upon our 1080p tests. Like I said, I was going to just make separate videos between the resolutions and the quality presets simply because it was going to be too long. So yeah, like I said, we are back with the 900p test today. I don't think the 900p test will matter to too many people. I know people do have a 900p monitor. However, like I keep stating, this is just almost like an archive. I'm using my channel as a database for plenty of results and plenty of results to come as well. So as you can see on the screen in the background, we have got the tech power up of the R9 290. I am currently using the Sapphire Tri X OC edition, so great cooling, massive card. But like I said, you can just pause the video if you want to look more deep into the spec. But we've got 4GB of GDDR5, we're running a GPU clock of 1000 MHz to the dot, and we've got a memory clock of 1300 MB. I've not done any overclocking with this card whatsoever. I'm just running everything at stock. Maybe I'll do some overclocking results in the future. So without wasting any more of your time, let's just crack on. Getting into the 900p, starting off with the very low preset. We got an average FPS of 139.2, a 1% low of 88.6, and a 0.1% low of 29.7. So as you can see, the results speak for themselves. If you did watch the 1080p video, you will see that this card is more than capable of running this game without any dramas, so it's only going to be better at the 900p. So as you can see in the background, I am using the same route as I did in my 1080p tests, and I will be doing the same route the whole way through to keep things consistent. So I'll just touch up on it for the people that haven't seen the first video. So the gameplay in the background is just for gameplay/recording purposes only. I will state that I am using the AMD recording software, and there is a bit of a performance hit. So if you're looking at the FPS on the graph in the background and then looking at the actual average FPS, don't be alarmed thinking I'm making up benchmarks or numbers. I'm simply doing my own tests using the same route without any recording, with no apps open, and just doing a full benchmark tests, so nothing is jeopardizing the actual performance. So with that out of the way, I will just say I am going to try and keep this video a lot shorter than the first one. The first one mainly was just explaining, obviously being the first video, so I will just crack on through these numbers. And if you'd like to pause the video at any time, obviously be my guest, look at the numbers. I mean, it only takes a second just to see the graph, see that it's 139.2 average FPS, and things are all good. Obviously, we are only at very low in this test, so we're going to slowly progress and hopefully see how this card does. So moving on to the 900p low benchmark, as you can see, we've got an average FPS of 102 on the dot. We've got a 1% low of 62.9, and we've got a 0.1% of 29.7, which is the same as last time actually. So as you can see, going from very low to low, we get a massive FPS impact, so to speak. So I think it's something like 37 FPS less on average, just bumping up them settings from very low to low. However, the game does look much better, so it's all worth it, and 102 FPS is still brilliant. So now we've gone over the numbers on the low preset, I would just like to mention that yes, I am using a 5600X to test Forza Horizon 5 on an R9 290, and I know that's not realistic. Just note that I am using this for testing purposes. You probably will be just fine with a 4th generation Intel i5. Like I said, don't hold me to that. However, at the time when the R9 290 came around, I do remember vividly that, and like an i5 4460 or even an i5 4570, basically anything from that 4th generation of i5s will be a good pairing with this card. You will also get this FPS with an i5 of a 4th generation. Obviously, newer the better, but just to let you know, that's that, just in case you ask. And yes, I am using 16GB of RAM, which is kind of a normal anyway, so all details will be in the description anyway, and also I will leave timestamps in the description if you'd just like to go to them parts of the video. Okay, so now I've cleared up most things, most of the boring stuff anyway. We'll just crack on with these numbers and we'll just try and keep it as short as possible. So yeah, moving on to the medium preset at 900p. The game still running absolutely flawlessly, and as you can see, the graphics or the quality is just looking incredible at medium actually. I was very surprised of how this game does look at medium 900p. More than playable, and we have an average FPS of 92.1, a 1% low of 70.7, and a 0.1% low of 40.5. So one thing I will mention is that the 1% lows and the 0.1% lows were quite tight actually for this test. I noticed even in the lower settings we was getting worse 0.1% lows and 1% lows. I will mention that, even in some of the other tests where you see 0.1% lows of 17 FPS, this game wasn't a stuttery mess. It wasn't even noticeable. It ran very smoothly, no latency, no lag, and it was great. So just keep the average FPS as the main focus for this video because I think that's the most accurate. I do like to just put the 1% lows and the 0.1% lows just to add a little bit more in-depth detail. In-depth detail, there we go. So yeah, this game is performing solidly. Like I said in a 1080p test, this card really did surprise me, so we'll just keep it going. So moving on to high settings. Personally, I think high settings for this game is just perfect. I mean, obviously higher the better, and this card can run this game perfectly at 900p high settings. I mean, if you watch the 1080p video, a little spoiler, you'll see that it runs 1080p perfectly, and as you can see, the game just looks absolutely incredible. I'd be more than happy just playing this. I would probably play at 1080p and maybe put on FXAA and maybe even get away with MSAA 4 times. I did mention this in my 1080p video. I can play this game at 45 FPS without any issues, and I think it's perfect. Obviously, being closer to that 60 FPS target is nice, and it is a luxury for some. This card just runs it, no worries whatsoever. There's not really much more I can speak upon this, except, like I said, it looks great, it runs great, it performs very well, and the card does stay cool. As you can see in the top left on the graph there, we're running it anywhere from 60, 65, not even 70. It rarely reaches 70. I mean, when it's maxed out, it'll hit 72 or something, but this game's not gonna absolutely stress it 100% of the time consistently. Okay, so moving on to the Ultra preset, and this is where things get interesting. A little bit similar to the 1080p result, as expected, as it's pretty much a similar resolution. However, look at that average FPS dip in performance. So we're going from, mid-70s, changing the preset by 1, and then going down to 38. That's half its frame rate for a few extra details. And to me, that just blows my mind. Like I said earlier, 45 FPS to me is playable in this game. And personally, you could just pick the Ultra preset at 900p if this was the choice you had, and then just adjust some of the quality settings and try and reach that 45 or 50 FPS. Obviously, if that's not an option and you want to play at 60, you are just best dropping the preset to high, maybe sticking on FXAA and just calling it a day and happy days. Yeah, the game does look brilliant. It's even gone to nighttime now. This is how long these tests are taking. But I will admit, this game does still look great, 900p, ultra settings. So one thing you could consider is maybe just playing 900p, even if you have a 1080p monitor, and maybe you'll be able to free up an extra setting or two to get a similar FPS as you would at 1080p on lower settings. I mean, there's not much difference between the resolutions in this game. That's up to you. Personally, if you had a 1080p monitor, play at 1080p and just enjoy the visuals for what they are, because like I said, even on medium, this game looks fine. High, brilliant, have no complaints. Yeah, that's the ultra test. Now let's move on to the extreme test. So with the extreme test, this is where I will admit this card is defeated. So I am using 2 times MSAA throughout whole of these tests just to sharpen up them edges a little bit. It does use a bit of FPS. So one thing I will mention, I know it's a bit late in the video, so if you're still watching, you can just turn MSAA off and maybe get a few extra FPS here and there. Personally, I think the setting on at 2 times is worth it than having it off completely. So that's definitely an option. However, as you can see by the average FPS at 28.5, a 1% low of 19.3 and a 0.1% low of 15.6, it is quite tightly spread. One thing I'll also state is that the recording is recorded at 60 FPS, so it is going to look a lot more choppy on the video simply because I am recording and losing a bit of FPS anyway, and the video is at 60 FPS. It will look a lot more choppy to you guys. I think if you are happy to target that console, well, not really the new consoles anymore, but about 30 FPS, you could just turn off MSAA 2 times and you will hit that 30 FPS. You could even go into the graphics settings, turn off some of the least important settings, and you probably will get just about a playable smooth experience. I don't know if smooth is the right word to use, but to some, 30 FPS is playable, and 30 FPS in this game isn't far off for me. Give me 45 FPS, I'm very happy. Like I said, this game looks brilliant at extreme 900p, no complaints whatsoever. Okay, so we're going to move on to a quick and short conclusion. Personally, like I said in the 1080p benchmark test, this card does surprise me. It carries on surprising me. In the 1080p test, my conclusion was very positive, and it is the same here. In fact, there is a little bit of a performance gain, obviously playing at 900p. That is to be expected. Once again, this card is great, and the £110 I paid for this, is still a bargain in this current graphics card climate, at least in my opinion. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the negatives of this card, but one thing I will just state in case you are watching this video and going, wow, this card performs very well in Forza Horizon 5. Couple things to note, it is a card from 2013, so just be aware that it is quite old. Make sure it's in good, noticeable condition. If you do know how to change the thermal paste and just give it a little clean up, most people, I'm sure, will figure out how to give it a clean, but I would recommend cleaning it, changing the thermal paste if possible, and just having a good experience with this card. It is quite power hungry, but I mean, I'm running this card on a 550 watt gold rated unit and it is perfect. In conclusion, this card is still brilliant. It'll play Forza Horizon 5. Like I said, this is a 900p test, but it will play at 1080p, no issues, at high settings, and even if you cranked up some of the anti-aliasing options, even better. So yeah, big thumbs up from me, and I will sign off. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you are interested in a 1080p video, you will find that video linked in this description, and I am also doing a 720p test. So for whatever reason, if you are interested in numbers and you want to see the 720p test, and the game can look quite surprisingly good. So yeah, thank you for watching, take care, and goodbye.